So, welcome to part 3 of our Alchemy course in the 11th dimension. And part 1 was realization, and it's realizing the ability to hold so much more of this golden light in our bodies. And then we had 8 classes in that, and then we had 8 classes of actualization, where you really get to feel it. And big transfer, and in the meantime, right, big transformations are happening in this year of truth. And today, which is the day after Easter, the first Monday after Passover, it still feels like the energies of the full moon. We are starting transmutation in alchemy. And transmutation is, of course, where you're looking for the Philosopher's Stone. And the Philosopher's Stone is that secret thing that the alchemists were all looking for that would turn base materials, base metals like lead, into gold. And Mark has said that we are the Philosopher's Stone. We are the ones turning base matter into gold, into light. So welcome. I know most of you have been with us before, but this class, as we have for decades, we always put the first class of every 8-class series up on our website for free. So if you're just finding this, and it'll be on YouTube, so if you don't want to say anything, don't speak and keep your videos off. But if you're new to this and you've never done this before, it doesn't matter that you didn't do part 1 and part 2. My guide, Mark, who I'm channeling for this, has created really an energy lattice, that kind of an energy Jacob's ladder that we climb up. And once everyone is at a certain stair, you don't have to climb up anymore. You just join us where we are. So there's no prerequisite. There's not 10 years of study. There's not even that you have to do parts 1 and 2 to start now, because the energies that we're working with are so solid now that if you feel drawn to it, jump right in and join us in transmutation. So the energies of Passover are really about redemption, are about being saved, being spared. The energies of Easter about resurrection, about ascension, about leaving the old body and escaping death, really, and being in this resurrected sort of energy field. And so Mark's called this a year of truth. So there's a lot of base matter, base emotions, lead, right, that has kept us grounded, probably for our own good. But now we're letting go of the lead. The analogy we used in the recent Mark workshop is that we're in our hot air balloon, and we've been spending a lot of time putting hot air in the balloon so we can raise. And we also have to remember that as much hot air as you put in the balloon, if you don't throw the sandbags out or unhook the balloon, you're not going to raise. So this year of truth has really been about seeing what sandbags we can throw out, seeing what we can unhook from that isn't true. And we'll probably find that a lot of who we think we are is not true, but it's a handy avatar. It's a handy script that we've been reading for the last, decades or the last many lives. But Mark is getting us in touch with the Shambhala consciousness, which is that place outside our earthly avatars, where we are pure consciousness. And pure consciousness means pure love, means purely connected to God's source, whatever that is for you, without any requirements. You don't have to thread the needle to be here. We just have to awaken to it. And we're all on that path. I'd love to say that I'm awakened and I'm giving you a hand up, but I'm not. I'm just on the path with you. We are all together figuring it out. So it's a wonderful place to be. Thank you all for those of you who joined our Mark weekend. So igniting your truth, it's still available in our shop on Zoom recording. If you missed it, of course, and I thank you all for the feedback that people say, wow, I've been to many Mark workshops and this is the best of the best. Well, it should be, because we are getting to different spaces. So every workshop should be more exquisitely transformational than the one before, because that's where we are. That's what we're demanding. So please feel free to attend that workshop on Zoom. We all held a space for you. So Mark is going to take questions today. During the weekend workshop, we didn't have a chance to get all the questions answered. So be thinking of your questions. And after the short break, he will take questions. I think last time I had a short break, I couldn't take any questions because I was spitting out in the universe, which is my second favorite place. My first favorite place is after I've spun out in the universe and I land into a different sort of me. And that's where we are now. So blessings to everyone. I'll call Mark in. Oh, and let me just say, no, I'll say the announcements later. So take a few deep breaths, unhook the sandbags, throw them out of your basket. Throw away even those comfortable sandbags that you thought were an important part of your hot air balloons basket, but they're not. And without Mark's help, feel lighter, stronger, and flexible, like a reed in the wind, flexible. As you yourself release these attachments, notice that there's more of your sweetness and emptiness coming into your body. Each of us have a frequency, a sound, a song that's ours. And let that come back into your body. And like the orchestra the orchestra members fine-tune their instruments before they start playing, ask your instrument to be fine-tuned. And again, before we call Mark in, once the instruments are fine-tuned and all is ready, and everyone's holding their instrument, their bow ready, the conductor has his or her hands out, and then all of a sudden, I want you to feel yourself playing and the other instruments beginning to play. As we connect to the music that is the Mark group. And you might feel that there's a fine tuning, an even finer tuning that happens in the higher planes as all of us are fine tuned together. And now, imagine the orchestra of Shambhala with its magical instruments is joining in with our tones, our songs, our music. It might be that the music is taking place on 2 octaves. We have the octave of our human orchestra, and then we have another octave of the Shambhala orchestra. And it's as we move together into this music that we will invite Mark in. Welcome, holy instruments of transmutation. This is Mark. In your stories of alchemy, it is the process of turning base matter or lead into gold that seems to capture the attention. And so it seems to be the gold that is being looked for or being sought after. And we take you now to the Philosopher's Stone, which is the instrument of the alchemical transformation or transmutation. It is that Philosopher's Stone that is the instrument. So we wish you to see yourself as the Philosopher's Stone, the instrument of transmutation. So the final product of gold is important, but it is the instrument of change that is vital. Yes, you have the capacity to be the alchemist gold. But moreover, you have the capacity to be the alchemist, the philosopher's stone. In some of our last classes together, we took you not only to Shambhala, but to what we call the second level of Shambhala. That is a level of transmutation. That is a level of light beyond physical light. We ask you now to move into those corridors of light where you are radiant, white light. If you are new to this, simply relax. The current of awakening picks you up and takes you with us. Transmutation is a multidimensional connection or reconnection to the highest dimensions of being and matter and your beingness. This radiant white light is one of the passages of transmutation. This might just be an imagination. This radiant white light fine-tunes your instrument even more. Dare we say, burning away some of the sandbags that you are unable to jettison. The first gate of transmutation is immense clearing. This isn't the first time or the last time that you'll be called to this immense clearing. It is a process you step into whenever you are ready for more. Invite this white fire into your cells to clear programs, scars that no longer serve you physically. The next part of this journey, this part may be uncomfortable physically. You may feel heat. So much has been coming to the surface to clear just in the last 3 weeks. This is cellular as well as spiritual, a white flame of purging. Be aware, have your awareness inside your body, feeling any changes at all. And just so you don't think you're missing it, your experience may move in between feeling more physical than you ever have before, and then the pendulum switches so you feel more alien, that you're in your body but you feel alien in your body. So you may be either side of that pendulum. There's no one right way to feel this purging. It may feel as if you're being melted, like the alchemist melting the lead. Every experience is valid, even if you're getting nothing. So perhaps you feel like you've been melted, that there's a state change in your body, that there are no words for it. That's perfect. Feel that even in this change, there is a sound that your instrument is still fine-tuned to. So retune to that self sound. And don't worry, there's no how-to to do it. Just setting the intention does it. So the intention of tuning again the instrument that has now changed and been purged. All right. As the next part of this white flame of purging, of melting, of preparing you, there's a step, we're going to call it emotional hell. And emotional hell is probably where many of you have lived the dark days of your life, where your mind allows you to plunge into this place of emotions that can't be explained or try to be explained. And it is a hellish place. And from this new fine-tuned instrument that you are, we're going to invite you to open up to what is a bath of emotions. And these are all emotions that are familiar to you. There's always our favorite part of the pool where we bathe in, where we descend into. It could be poor me, it could be anger, whatever it is. And from this new space that you are, because you are in a new space, allow yourself to descend into whatever is your emotional hell. Now, you don't have to feel the emotions, but we want you to see how disharmonious it is and disconnected it is to your instrument, to your true beingness. But it's where you've spent lifetimes spinning around in karma, and where your mind has taken itself as the supreme being of emotional hell by trying to explain why you're in this emotional hell. So you have not only emotions, but your mind trying to control it and rectify it and explain your way out of it. We want you to together, and if you don't feel like you're up to it, please don't do this, but to open to that disassociation of emotions, being the being that you are now, and being connected to the orchestra of Shambhala, the orchestra of the higher dimensions, so that what begins to happen, and we will tell you, is that these emotions reorganize, they sort themselves out, they stop pulling on you and making your beingness respond to them. And there will be a synthesizing or a reharmonizing of emotions, and a clarification of you as not these emotions either. You are not the thinking self nor the emotional self. So play with us now. These energies are spectacular now for clearing, cleansing, lifting, and open up to what is the dissonance of your emotional hell and be in it with this purity of your beingness till that illusion harmonizes. It's already happening. If there's anything you need to learn or understand in this place, let your guides from the Shambhala team explain it to you. If you need to follow a rope of emotions into where it coils up and learn. So we, Mark, will hold a space, as will your immense Shambhala team, for a reorganizing of your relationship to emotions. Just be aware and curious. What do you need to learn or see here is really your only question. What is your emotional hell and what do you need to understand about it? There's a reorganization of your emotions and your relationship to them. There is a harmonization you might feel, and then a releasing of freedom. And what begins to happen is your identity disassociates from these emotions and gives room for your true identity which is a God-sourced being. The matrix of emotions give way to a holy beingness. The sense of holiness and beingness grows. The sense of your individual identity weakens. It's not your identity that weakens, it's the individualization that weakens and gives space for the actualization of God consciousness. Your consciousness is merging with something much bigger than its small self. So to revisit a metaphor we used earlier, the metaphor of the orchestra fine-tuning the instruments and hearing everyone's tone, and then there was a Shambhala orchestra that was at another octave that also fine-tuned. Now notice that it's as if you are lifting to that higher octave of the Shambhala orchestra and its tones and its frequencies and its tuning. As if you've moved to a higher octave now. Your body and being is fine-tuning to this octave. Emotions are no longer a critical force in your life. And realize that love, romantic love, is an emotion, but love, beingness, God love, is not an emotion. It becomes more present at this octave now. And what's different is that this God's love is not something that you receive in this octave, it's something that you've become. So we've lifted you to these octaves before, but what's different is much more of your body frequencies are able to lift here too. So be conscious of your body as it fine-tunes physically to this state of being. you might notice that you have no edges that need to be protected. This is more of a physical awakening than you've ever been able to hold before. Because the vessel and structures of who you thought you were have been exploded open. Be aware of your physical body. And notice that when you're aware of your physical body, it does not compress the allness that you are floating in, that you've remembered. Good. You are leaving either or awareness where you could be either high or grounded. And the breakthrough is that you are both. Feel again the entire octave of this new orchestra level that you are playing in. And open to the orchestra's music again. You've been focused on your own instrument. Open to the overall tones, music of this level of Shambhala. For you are no longer the instrument, you're the orchestra. This particular octave of Shambhala is, of course, this orchestra is beyond time. So as your beingness ascends here, and at some level your body gets used to it, the orchestration that takes place in your life becomes magic. These tones orchestrate something that will happen 3 years from now or 3 days from now. So the orchestra itself orchestrates your life in a way that is congruent with the beingness of this radiance. So from control, you move to trust. The orchestra orchestrates. There's nothing to do and very little to see. We hold the space until we feel that it can stand on its own. So to keep with our metaphor of the orchestra, you might imagine that the orchestra, in our past view, the orchestra was on the stage and humans in the audience, and there was always a wall between the orchestra and the audience, and the play and the audience. And there are times when that wall, that third wall, is breached, and the actors and the musicians, instead of just playing or acting, they interact with you. And it's as if you've broken that wall between you as an audience and you as divinity. And now there's this connection, which is the basis of transmutation. That divinity is no longer something out there to be received or earned, but it is to be part of the orchestra of that divinity now. The wall of separation has been opened. Allow a holiness, a flow, an orchestration, a grace so much bigger than you can control or your ego can understand or your emotions can process. Allow this opening. And now, in the space, in the silence, in the groundedness of that which is seemingly new, open to guidance, to your highest inner truth or voice, giving you guidance. It may not be an embodied being coming and standing in front of you and telling you something. It is that you are connected to truth. You are that divine orchestration. So open now to details, steps, something you need to know in your life now. And if you don't get details, that's fine too, because you've put yourself in this orchestration. So at the moment you need to know something, you'll know it. So if there's not guidance, it means there's no action to be taken at this moment. It doesn't mean you're missing out in getting guidance. You're opening to guidance in the right moment. So your mind doesn't have to be filled with plans and mission strategies. There is a clear knowingness. And this knowingness is now your truth. You are in touch with it. The knowingness you carry with you, and you'll notice perhaps one of the biggest changes is that which you counted as strength, your ability to withstand others' emotions, your ability to handle more and more put in your backpack, that strength is no longer operable at this level of being. The strength, rather, is that flexibility that we open this meditation with, the flexibility to know and to weave and to flow and to go and not make a stand and say, I have to defend this stand. It is this very organic movement. So move from the old strength that was almost always defensive into a flexible strength that is trust, that no matter what happens, you can trust your access to truth, your decisions, your lessons, your insights. Feel the flexibility of truth and trust now. Feel that holiness, be that wholeness and holiness. Not trying to understand. It doesn't matter if you remember anything. Feel clear and flexible. And from this clear, flexible, grounded space, this harmony of the higher octave of the orchestra of Shambhala is your orchestra now. It's as if you went from the B team orchestra to the A team orchestra, playing in a different field. And everything gets easier now because all the other players are more fine-tuned and they lift your song, your instrument. And now we'll walk off the stage, we'll walk out of the room so that you can feel all of this without any assistance from us. You are Shambhala. So feel your holiness, your wholeness, maybe your wordlessness. Feel your vastness in this interconnected orchestra and your groundedness. Or I should say your presence, that you're very present. So take a few minutes just feeling this new truth embodied. Yes. Wow, something just crystallized, something just like found its space. All right, dear ones, give yourself some time. We're going to I think we better take a 15-minute break, drink lots of water, just be silent. And when we come back, Mark will talk, we'll take questions. So what time is it? It's 11 after the hour. We'll come back at 20, you know what, maybe just a 10-minute break at 20 past the hour. See you in about 10 minutes. So again, we make public this first class of every course, and we've been doing it forever for people who really who want to follow the energies of Mark but can't afford the time or the money to do this. So if you don't want to show up, please, you'll just have to type in your question to Jeff to ask. But, you know, so we're going to start. Yeah, we're going to start with your questions. So just unmute yourself. When you speak, you'll show up. And I see that it looks like Brooke Grant has a question. Brooke, can you unmute yourself, or do I have to unmute you? You can go ahead. Let me see if I can unmute you.
I unmuted myself, I think.
Okay, good.
The question for Mark. Is Mark?
Yeah, he'll be as soon as you. So I'm here until you ask a question. Then Mark answers it.
Okay. What lit up for me, Mark, is when you talked about this wall of separation. Like we've gone beyond the wall of separation, and I've gotten from other guides or channels and the Course in Miracles all the stuff that our main problem has been separation. Now, if we can maintain where you took us, or we went with you, that beyond this wall of separation, if I'm understanding it right, if I can keep my consciousness, or all of us can keep our consciousness beyond that wall of separation, we are divine. We're what you used God consciousness talk, that we are one with God. We are God. I mean, some of the other things I read and hear say this. But are there other things? Are there other orchestras to play in, bigger, more complicated, something else that we just kept, this just goes on for an infinity? Or have we reached some point beyond this wall and beyond this Shambhala orchestra that we're there? And this is now we're one with all that is. And now I guess we go help other people or beings get to where we've been, since it sounds like our class is far ahead of the game with some others. Anyway, what happens now?
Wonderful question. This is Mark. So there's the veil of separation is maintained not from the other side of the veil, but from your side of the veil, maintains the veil of separation. From the other side, they see no separation. So as you move through this, what we call the third wall, the difference, it is that you have jumped a gap. You have jumped that quantum between one octave that you were playing in and you were beautiful in, and this other octave, and there's been a merging. There will not be, again, from your perspective, that membrane is broken, but you can have a broken membrane and have everything open here, and you still insist upon staying on the ground here and holding on with all your emotional might to ego and everything else. So the space is now more inviting. It is more open for you. And as you feel safe, You let go of your grip, your sandbags, like, oh no, I'm not letting the hot air take me up there. It's unknown. And as you let go of that, the ascension is possible. It's no longer limited from your body's ability to hold those frequencies. This is where we've been working for 32 years, is to get your body's able to hold the frequency. So when the membrane breaks, that you are safe, you are embodied, you can hold it. Now you only hold some of the sounds. It's, if we keep the metaphor of the orchestra, it's as once it opens up, maybe you can only hear the bass tones at first. But the bass tones are still in the orchestra you want to be playing in. And then as your spiritual frequencies get used to the bass tones, then you move into the other tones and the other tones. But the membrane is open and your bodies have survived the opening and the frequencies that are now enabled into you by that. Now, your awareness of it, your ability to let go of holding on to the very bottom of the old quantum, that is up to each personality. But now there is no artificial or no physical barrier between the higher dimensions and your ability to at least have them in your body. So that was a profound question, Brooke. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, if you can unmute yourself, Corinne, or whoever else has their hand up. Brooke, mute yourself again.
I think
Corinne.
Erin was first.
Yes, go for it.
Hi, Jonette and Mark. This is Erin. And I was wondering if you could speak to family lineage and perhaps how ancestral goals, ancestral traumas impact us now, and also how that changes then whether we had strong relationships with our ancestors or none at all. And if you could speak to that on some level on our path through growth.
Previously on your path to growth, the ancestral lineage was important, that there may have needed to be some understanding of its import on each of you. But as you move through this membrane or this opening, ancestral lineage is not in your equation. Having said that, the ancestral lineage is your breakthrough is in their equation. If your ancestral lineage is still holding on to all the blocks that it had come through, and sometimes it's so hard to let go of a lesson that's been learned because it's been learned, so you hold on to the darn lesson. So your being able to hold these high frequencies then has a direct impact on family and ancestral lineage, because you are operating at a higher octave, and parts of the you before you lifted here are connected to that lineage, so that they now have a resonant pull, a helper, if you will. Just like your guides have been helpers to you, you are helpers now to your lineage. So now it is important for them that you are here, but it no longer has any hold on you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Again, a profound question, because all of you can feel the implications of this. Thank you. Corinne.
Hi, yeah, it's Corinne. Actually, my question comes from the weekend, the Mark weekend, when we spoke about the soul paths we have, and that it's actually not necessary anymore when we're out of karma. So the soul archetypes in a way, and also the, what do you call it? I don't remember. But I was wondering afterwards, and also now, about relationships or genders or just duality, polarity. What, for instance, about twin flames or concepts like that? And do we still need to have genders, or do we still need to have like drives, like sexuality to have babies? And I love the question from Aaron as well, because I was wondering, how can we get out of polarity as well, or how much longer does it make sense, and when do souls manifest themselves and we don't need to have babies anymore? Things like that. It's a long question, but maybe you can map out a bit what we're looking forward to. Yeah, thank you.
So let us see if we can understand it and take that to another level. It's as if polarity and duality were the key that needs to be unlocked to move through to this other octave. You had to play in the orchestra of your peers, of earth, of karma, of polarity and babies and sexuality and all of that. You had to be a very fine instrument in that orchestra. And it was as that orchestra played beautifully and you waited and waited today, then there was the sense of this other octave orchestra. So everything you've done and been and become is still part of your instrument's playing. And it's as if you are also in this heavenly orchestra as well. So there will not be an end. As long as there's matter, there was not an end to gender, sexuality, procreation, creation, art, all of the things that are creation in the material world. What happens is that material world, which has been cut off from the divine world, becomes reconnected. And the materiality of creation on earth becomes much more divinely inspired rather than ego inspired and protection inspired. So all of that richness gets richer because it's no longer serving the God of ego or protection or survival. It becomes creation for creation's sake. So both orchestras are playing and you live in both. So, and you threw in a question that is a little different than all of the rest of your question about twin souls. So twin souls have been important in the awakening of many of you, but they're not like the family lineage. They are not essential now. In your staying awakened, your awakening might be helpful in your family lineage, in your twin soul lineage, so that your awakening is a resonant tone to them. But the things that were necessary in a journey, like hard lessons, like, mostly hard lessons, they are not so necessary now. So we don't know if we meted out your question, but the richness of life on earth just gets richer and easier and serves a God of creation and divinity and allness rather than the God of, I need to be compact and protected and all that causes.
Yeah, that was very nice. I'm just wondering now, is there going to be like some sort of, I don't know, romantic relationships between, I don't know, inner earth beings or just 5D beings and human beings? Or is that just a
Yes.
feeling that humans can feel? Or yeah.
Romance and love are something different. You are opening up to this divine love that it's inseparable from beingness itself. And so as love pours through you as these beautiful instruments, love is everywhere. So that pure love will connect love with the inner earth beings and love with nature spirits, and a more clear connection to nature, to animals, to trees, to the Mother Earth herself, because there is not the separation. Romantic love was emotional love, and emotional love is still possible in this world, but it's cleaner because it will serve divine love rather than serving, I'm missing these parts, you have these parts, let's get together and have a codependent relationship. So those kinds of relationships will still be there, but all of you will be less enticed to personality-based choices, and your personality is more infused with your God self, your divinity. So there's just more of God flowing through, and there's love everywhere. That's what you're stepping into. So the old stories of fairy tales, and this is how it should be, and there's a one person for me, that may broaden out a lot for those of you who hear both orchestras, who play in both orchestras. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead, unmute yourself. I believe you're able to. Jonette, if you're able to unmute yourself, go ahead.
Hello.
Paul, hi.
Yes, I've got a question. If we step out of karma, the karma wheel, what will direct us then?
That is a beautiful question. Direction is important when you have a path. So when you're on the wheel of karma, your path takes you to ever greater lessons, ever greater surrendering as you turn around the wheel. As you move more into divine grace, the path, there's no sense of path. There's a sense of beingness that radiates in all directions rather than in this direction. So direction comes more from divine guidance and knowing that, oh, this brings joy. I'll hold this viewpoint because this viewpoint is more joyful than the viewpoint I used to hold. Or I will hold this love because this is nicer than the judgments I used to have. So your soul's self is self-directing. If you, in our weekend, we did these soul types. That is still who you are. If you're creative, an artist, you will always be creating. If you're many of the other types, that will always direct you. But you're not being directed by improving something or correcting something or learning a lesson. You'll be directed by the passion of discovery and creation, more like a 2-year-old. They are self-directed in all kinds of ways, and they're directed by their own beingness because they're not yet following mommy and daddy's rules. So you're directed in a different way from a knowingness and a beingness.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do you realize, all of you, that lessons have given us everything? You know, I need to learn this lesson. And there comes a point that learning the lesson keeps you in school. And you all are reaching that point that you value every lesson that brought you here, but you're leaving school. Thank you. And once you leave school, you're self-directed. There's that spark of light that is you that directs you. Other questions, beautiful ones?
Can I ask another question?
Yes.
Sorry.
We want to say we do not know what you all think or need because we have never been physical. So your questions and comments guide us in relating to you. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, it's a different question from the last ones. We have quite a famous young woman in Switzerland. She's very, very multidimensional and a pure love being. And she wrote, or her mother wrote books about her. Now she's writing books herself. But
what's her name?
Christina von Dreyen.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
And I'm not really following her, but I read the 2 books the mother wrote. And what I wanted to ask for a long time is, she's been really attacked by the dark side, where she calls it the unlight. And I was just wondering, how is that possible, or is that just her task? Because she's such a radiant and high conscious being. How is that possible that she can be attacked in such a way? Yeah. Thank you.
For the beginning of time, high beings have been attacked, but there comes a point, and she is not being harmed by them. But what is beautiful is that her light draws out the darkness. The darkness will never attack her or engulf her or cause her to be less radiant. But her light draws the darkness out of the darkness, and the darkness then, in its hatred of the light, has a resonance with her field. And it's that light, even though it's hatred of it, that begins to change that darkness that dares attack her. Her light is immutable, as all light is. Darkness is simply temporary, and she has agreed to hold the light, as many light beings have. They are always attacked. There is never a light being that is not attacked. That it brings the darkness out, and the darkness has a connection to the light, and through that there is a connection. She is a grand being, and she is serving that purpose. Thank you. Yes, put it in the chat, her name, and people can read her books. This is Jonette. I've read her books. It's so helpful to think of these young people who have these incredible souls who now can come on earth because of all the work that's been done to lift the frequency closer and closer. So there are many she's an interesting being because her mother recognized her and wrote a book when she was young, but there's so many unrecognized that are still doing their work. There's incredible light being born on this planet. And all of you are parts of holding the light for the light, all of you. And it doesn't matter that you haven't figured it all out, that you're not perfect, you're just holding a bigger light. So that was from me and Mark. Whenever he says you, then he's Mark. So there's much more, there's less of a demarcation between us. So when people say, is that Jonette or Mark? The answer is yeah. So that brought him in. Thank you, Corinne. Another question, or go ahead. There's a couple more, and then I want to hear how your bodies are handling what we did before the break. So we'll take these next two questions. It looks like Falcon and Melissa. Go ahead. Falcon first.
Okay. It's estimated that in the American or the world population, that about 12% of humans are either sociopathic or psychopathic. It has something to do with lack of mirror neurons or whatever. It's an inability to empathize. So what will happen? I mean, do they just stay on this lower wheel of karma? Does the 3D continue? Because I've heard other people saying that 3D is literally collapsing as a hologram. What happens?
3D is not collapsing as a hologram. 3D is just one of the bubbles of creation. The third dimension, it is, for some reason, and it's probably this whole story of Adam and Eve, that the 3D seems to be sullied or dirty. It is not. That all of the dimensions cannot stand unless there's also a 3D. So there's many dimensions. You cannot pull out the 3D and have the other dimensions be interdimensional. The beings who are having the most trouble, sociopaths, psychopaths, ones who've been so harmed, what happens is they will probably, and it's up to how these changes play out, but they will probably end this life and do a few more to embody higher consciousness in their karmic wheel. In the meantime, and they don't have to, there's still an exit point to move from being terribly wounded to divinity and grace, because you don't actually have to always figure it out. So karma will continue because there's some lightening of the load that might be helpful, and it's not necessary. So some of those will move immediately to the light when there's enough balance, there's enough of you who are moving out of the wheel of karma to bring this gravitational pull. So some will pop open there with you, no matter how dark they are, or they will still move. So 3D reality is an incredibly creative part of creation, and it's going to be around as long as there is time. Time and 3D reality are related, and it doesn't encompass the whole universe. There's the non-time universe, but the time universe is exquisite and is important and will not collapse.
What's going to happen to cause them to suddenly be able to feel compassion, to feel empathy, if they're going to be able to leap?
They may not leap in this life. They may leap in between. So they may stay stuck and finish this life stuck. And then in between lives, with all the help of their guides, that when they come back, the earth will be at a higher frequency. So they can't stay as stuck as they were down here. They'll land in a higher frequency earth, and that may help them. So we don't know if those people who are terribly wounded will wake up in this life and be different. They may, but they may not. There's not one happening that the second coming or the third coming happens and all of a sudden all the wounded ones who are so broken are saved. That may not happen in this time.
And may I ask one more question?
Yes.
The economic situation, I know that things are preparing, well, at least my sense is that things are preparing to shift dramatically. But I don't know what the time scale on that is. And so I'm wondering, like, if we don't have the 2-parent household to raise the kids, because that's the old traditional model, how do the children get raised? I mean, is it the whole village raises them, or can you give us any kind of outlook on time? I know you're above time. It's probably pretty meaningless, but how long until the new system settles out to where that's not a consideration? Because in the old world, being
You
a
all
single,
think, you all think of abrupt changes. These changes are, some people hit the wall of time, and you all are moving through that wall of time. So from the non-time place of these high spaces you are, the shifts can appear to be much quicker. And that appearance then makes it quicker for more stuck people. People always say, well, when is the time that time ends? Well, this is impossible. We invite you to be more multidimensional and to hold the grace, the sense, the creation, and let creation figure out its time. The timing of everything is different. A flower so there is no answer in time for non-time breakthroughs, is our short answer. And we invite you not to worry about the future and try to plan it according to the diagrams of planning, because those diagrams of planning are not so well served by the high spaces that you are being born into.
thank you.
Thank you.
Mark, I've got a question which relates a little bit to the question which was asked before today. So I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself a little bit, but it's about the relationship we're forming now, with close relationship we're forming. It feels like we have some responsibility because of our more open consciousness. And for example, it feels like we see much more, and yet we attracted to people which maybe are not so much involved on the spiritual path. Should we move away from those type of relationships, or still, yes, what is the right thing to do?
Yes, that's a very wonderful black and white question. And the answer is, you don't know. You can tell if a person is open-minded. If they have already decided that this is their fortress, their belief system is their fortress and it keeps them safe, and you can tell that they're pretty impenetrable, they would make a very bad partner for you. But if someone is in their fortress, but they're asking you questions, they're saying, oh, maybe I would like to meditate, or you will be able to read if someone's fortress is so defended that they'll never see you and never see themselves. Or if Maybe they're hiding behind a fortress because their last 3 relationships have been hard, but they're ready for you to come and open the windows. So, dear one, there's no yes or no, but your heart can feel, is that fortress so well defended that that person is a prisoner in their fortress? Or has the fortress just become a safe place and they are emerging? All of you will find the friends that are in their fortresses, you'll have less time for them. And you will find, with your new sense of exploration and creation, those who are emerging. And they will find you, whether it's friendships, whether it's a music teacher or a dance teacher. It doesn't always have to be a partner, but tell the world that you want emerging playmates. And then just see how the world brings it to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And dear ones, the energies that you opened up today are claiming, and you've been working on them. There is no one moment where the membrane opens, are proclaiming your emergence. That proclamation of your emergence is a magnet for, one, people who love your sunshine and can assist in your beautiful awakening, or those who are ready to awaken because you're showing them the way. So your emergence is such a light, such a fire for your own growth and for others. All of you are on fire with divinity. Trust you and untrust your ego's clamoring for safety. And we say that to all of you. We say that to Jonette as well. Blessings. Thank you. All right. Go ahead. And then I'm gonna ask for feedback from how you felt that change today. Okay, go ahead, Lena.
Yeah, it's actually a mixed question I have, because I don't really feel any changes in my body. And my question goes on, because this is normal for me. I do not feel big changes. Is it because my heart is closed? This is not like for a personal reading. It's just as a general thing. And another final thing is, I very often feel like I know all these places that I'm brought to, not today, but very often, as if it's something I remember. So everything.
There's your answer, dear one. Those of you who feel less have probably been so already cooking in these new energies so much that it was a small change. We believe, but we want to hear from you, that the last key for some of you was what we called, and Jonette was resistant to saying it, but this emotional hell where you went into it from your higher self. So many of you have cleared that emotional hell out so much that you did not feel big changes. So it's not that your heart is closed. It's quite the contrary, that you've been playing in these areas so much that you had cleared away a lot of the big sandbags, and there was very little to recognize.
Okay, thank you.
So for all of you who didn't feel it, just notice how much you've been doing this work for the past decades. And that's why you didn't feel it, because you've been so successful.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. There was a sigh of relief from about 60 of you. All right.
Oh, yes, definitely.
This is why all of you have questions. They are so important.
There's a question in the chat. Shall I read it?
Oh, yes, please do.
Okay. What happens to our primal parentheses animal brain unparentheses brain, the autonomic nervous system? Will it serve our holiness?
That is a very good question. Your primal brain will become less primal and more secondary. And as you proclaim, receive, hold, acknowledge your holiness, that which is primal and base and led begins to be transmuted of its own accord. When it's necessary and you need to run from the lion that's in front of you, the primal brain will be there. But it will no longer need to take survival precedence, because there begins to be born in you this overwhelming truth that all is well. You know, when people have near-death experiences, they say it changes their whole life. Well, of course they go back to the same life, but they understand that where they've been, where they're going is incredible. And they don't need to stress about where they're stuck now. So the primal brain will always be there, but it becomes, the survival mechanism becomes subsumed by this God quality that all of you are growing into. You are growing into it. It's becoming you. And for some, for masters, sometimes it's a flip of a switch and they are there. But you didn't take that path, not because you're less holy, but because you wanted to lay down the stones through the river so that others could pass. You wanted to build the vibrations into earth to create the bridges. It is an honor to be with you in the construction of the exit points of humanity out of karma. We thank you. This is Mark.
Does Mark want to take another question in the chat?
I think he's done. You can tell me what when he kind of finishes like that, he's out. You can ask what it is, and if enough of him is here, we'll answer it. If not, we'll ask you to bring it back next time.
Okay. I'll read it. Would Mark say that the state behind the pearly gate is the same state as enlightenment of Gautama Buddha, state of Buddhahood?
No, there are other doorways to that overall breakthrough of enlightenment. But when you are through the pearly gates, you are in the energy of enlightenment. It is like you're in that room where both orchestras are playing. That level of being a fully awakened, transmuted being is how much you hold of what is beyond the membrane in your body. Thank you. All right, now I'm coming back because it's very hard for me to go back and forth. Wow. So now I'm going to stay Jonette, and I'd like a couple of you say what did happen when Mark said that membrane was open. I mean, for me, I didn't feel a big difference, me, Jonette. But so let's just hear from maybe three of you what your experience is, if you remember that far back, like before the break, of what we did today. Kari, go ahead.
Yes. I did not feel that I had to clear up something because I have done it so many times before. But when we should go up and it said the membrane was gone, I felt I lifted and lifted and came up to a level that was very clear, bright, shining landscape of nothingness. And I was up there. And when we came, I was standing there and it suddenly came a lot of beings, maybe humans, maybe whatever. And they was coming up to me and passing me in an endless row. It was no end on them. And there were enormous amounts of such beings coming there. And I was very surprised when you talked about that we were the orchestra and the public there was no barrier in between anymore. And I saw it and I thought it's impossible. But it was before you said it. So I was very astonished. I was surprised and very happy. I feel so well. And I can go up there now as easy as if I'm sitting in my chair.
So Kari, we're so grateful because as Mark said, we're on the orchestra and we're playing our instrument, and you see this for those of us who didn't feel it. So, this is why it's so beautiful to do this as a group, that we didn't have to see it because Kari's in our orchestra and she saw it all. It's beautiful. Thank you, my dearest.
Thank you.
One or two others.
Hey, it's Barney.
Barney.
My experience was there were two selves, and they were vibrating at a very high rate. So it was this kind of subatomic feel of kind of subatomic particles vibrating, and they started to come together. And then there's a way that the overlap, which is still happening, feels like it's not a real tension exactly. It's more like like it's settled, but there's an overlap where there's a lot of activity going on, and this weird kind of two boundaries that are porous between these two sides of myself, although I don't experience them at that way, just energetically. And then the way that it's coming together. And then the sense that I'm left with overall, I'm someone who does a lot of emotional processing, and I know a lot was going on, but I wasn't identifying particular things. And when I was done, I just felt this overwhelming sense of sort of emotional capacity that I don't know what that means or what to do with it. And it feels like it's still kind of going on, but it's like, it's class one. That's kind of what happened. So we'll see how that kind of plays out over the weeks, what it becomes. But that's the overall sense of it for me.
Thank you for describing it so well. So if anybody else felt that and kind of like the work in processness of whatever that merging is. Yeah, it's class one. Yeah. Wow. You guys are so good at describing really indescribable experiences. One more person.
Hello from Denmark. I don't know how to describe it, but normally you say that our souls are much bigger than our bodies. And after that we drop down the wall, that I'm left with the feeling that I'm a lot bigger than my body. So I would say that my soul more in my body than usually it is, and but still, as I'm bigger, but I feel lighter. So yeah, that's how I feel.
I'm totally following you. But, you know, so she's saying we're in, and I can feel, yeah, that's how I still am. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So you guys need to make an announcement so I don't forget. Next Monday, we won't have class, but I want you to meditate during this time because I'm going to be at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. Next Monday was the only day I could get reservations for the Grand Canyon. So I'm going to go hike down to as far as I can and then hike up. And I think it's a 7 or 8 hour trip. So at this time at noonish, I'll be at the bottom. And I will sit somewhere and meditate and bring you all. I mean, talk about going into time, because the newest part of the earth is on the top. And so I'll be way down in the ancient part of the earth, meditating with all of you during our mark time. So then the next week, we'll be back together again for class 2. Let's see what else to tell you. Oh, I am going to be doing online a soul body fusion class, a 1-day practitioners class online on Zoom. And I think that's Saturday, the 15th of May. It's not on our website yet, but put that in. And in a couple weeks, we'll be opening up for our master's group that starts July. So it'll go from July to December. I only take 12 people. So watch for that and be thinking if you feel that you're ready. And many of you can go ahead. I think we've got a questionnaire. So if you're interested, just email now, info@jonettecrowley.com. And we've got a little form that you fill out so that we know everybody who's interested for this time. And I'll be making the decisions in June so that we can start in July. So that's it. I'm glad we've got 2 weeks to integrate whatever this is, even though I didn't feel huge changes. You all did. And so I know that I got them. Thank you again for being in this transmutation class. We are doing it together, and it's an honor. Like I said before, it's an honor to be pathmates with all of you and friends with all of you. You know, I'm not on a pedestal. I love the friendships. I don't have much time to interact, but I'll get to see some of you when I come to Europe in June. Blessings. See you in 2 weeks. Thank you.